I call to order the Village of Westmont Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting for Wednesday, March 13th, 2024. Acting Secretary, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Berry,
Here.
Commissioner Scales,
Here.
Commissioner Lavoy,
Here.
Commissioner Zakiri,
Here.
Commissioner Thomas,
Here.
Commissioner Peterson's here, and Chairperson Carmichael.
Here. We have a quorum. Would everyone rise and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And while everyone's standing, again, anyone who testifies needs to be sworn in, so please raise your right hand and swear that any and all testimony you give before this commission will be the whole truth. Thank you. Boyer, would you come over here? Here we have the oath of office for Commissioner of the Westmont Planning and Zoning Commission. Please raise your right hand and swear after me. I
Boyer Zakiri.
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
Do solemnly swear that I'll support the Constitution of the United States,
the laws of DuPage County,
the laws of DuPage County,
the Westmont Village Code of Ordinances,
the Westmont Village Code of Ordinances,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties for the office of Commissioner on the Board of Planning and Zoning.
that I will faithfully discharge
The duties
the duties
of the
of the
office
office
of Commissioner on the Board of Planning and
Commissioner on the Board of Planning and Zoning,
Zoning, to the best of my
to the best of my
ability.
ability.
All right, thank you. Welcome
Thanks.
aboard, Boyer. Reminder, please, everyone, your cell phones, put them on silence. And our first item is the approval of the minutes of our December 13th, 2023 regular meeting. Do I have motion to approve?
So moved, Barry.
Second, Scales.
Motion and second. Any discussion on those minutes? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Scales,
Yes.
Commissioner Lavoy,
Yes.
Commissioner Zakiri,
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson votes yes, Commissioner Berry,
Yes.
Chairperson Carmichael.
Yes. Next item is approval of the minutes of the February 14th, 2024 regular meeting.
So moved, Barry.
Second, Scales.
We have Barry and Scales. Discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Lavoy,
Yes.
Commissioner Zakiri,
Yes.
Yeah.
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson votes yes, Commissioner Berry,
Yes.
Commissioner Scales,
Yes.
Chairperson Carmichael.
Yes. Thank you. Next item is a review of public hearing procedures. Just quickly, the way we conduct these meetings is the petitioner will come to the podium, identify him or herself, present the petition, be followed by comments from our village staff, and then the public gets to weigh in with any questions, comments, followed by the commissioners, and finally a vote. A reminder that our votes are a recommendation only. This body, it's a recommendation to the village board. They have the final say-so on all of these issues. Under old business, we have none this month. New business, we have two items on the agenda tonight. First is public hearing PZC number 0462023. Request by Advocate Health and Hospitals Corporation for a medical outpatient center at 330 East Ogden, Westmont, and 639 Blackhawk Drive for the following. 1, a zoning ordinance variance request to permit outdoor lighting in excess of illumination standards. 2, site and landscaping plan approval. 3, preliminary plat of subdivision to consolidate 2 lots into 1. 4, a foundation landscape waiver. And 5, parking stall size waiver. And who would speak on behalf of Advocate? Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Jim Slinkman, and I am Vice President and Managing Counsel for Advocate Health. And we are here, as has been stated, this evening to seek a zoning variance related to permit for outdoor lighting, a site and landscaping plan approval, and a preliminary plat of subdivision to consolidate 2 lots into 1 lot. We're going to have 2 people speak tonight. Tammy Robinson, who's our Executive Director of Operations for our Central Chicago and Western Suburbs region, and she's going to give you a brief overview of the project. And then Brad Mayer from our Planning, Design, and Construction team, who will go into a little bit more detail about the building. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Tammy Robinson. As stated, I'm the Executive Director of Operations for the Western Suburbs of Central Chicago. We're very pleased to be here tonight to represent Advocate Health. We would like to give you an overview of what we are planning to build in our Westmont community. Our plan is to build a 42,000 square foot building, which will consist of 2 stories. In the Westmont community, the services within that building, we will offer our 2 X-ray units, mammography, ultrasound, lab, physical therapy. We're going to offer an orthopedic immediate care center, which is a walk-in facility for orthopedic patients. Orthopedics, medical and surgical sports medicine. We'll also be offering primary care, OBGYN, and breast health services. Access to our building will come in off of the Black Hawk Road. The reason for this entrance is to best place our parking lot nearest to the entrance of our building. Our orthopedic patients have difficulty ambulating, so this is the best position for that building adjacent to the parking lot. We expect services to be offered Monday through Friday for all specialties, with some specialties offering evening hours and weekend hours depending on patient demand and the services available. We anticipate the facility will open in November of 2025, and we expect to have 40 to 50 team members and physicians on site at any given time. We are also anticipating daily visit volumes will be greater than 100 patients per day and will grow year over year for the next 5 years. With that, I'll hand it off to Brad for additional comments.
My name's Brad Mayer. I am Manager Construction for Advocate Healthcare, and I've been doing all the front-end legwork with the community so far. We have, the first item was the zoning variance for the lighting, and if you have not seen it, we are at 0.1 foot candles, and it's just a couple spots on the building or the site perimeter. It's just because of some placements of the lights. We could move them in, but we'd have dark spots on the site then also. We asked for the variance because also we are surrounded by commercial properties. We're very cognizant of the residential, and we don't have any issues with reaching the residentials. And our fixtures are what they call dark sky, so they'll be shielded and directed onto the property, and you'll just have, like I said, 0.1 foot candles, which is so minimal. Our other approach is the combining the 2 lots. We bought the properties, the 2 restaurants that were there, and are combining them. As Tammy mentioned, we're meeting all the ordinances, or we will be meeting all the ordinances for stormwater detention, parking stalls, and setbacks, and those kinds of items. And then we've also got our landscaping. I think a lot of it's been said. If there's any questions or however else you want to proceed it, we've met twice with staff over a period of the last 3 months. And we've got 2 sets of comments that we've submitted to them based on their commentary back to us. So we've tried to be a good neighbor and work with the village on presenting what they want and what we think we need.
Thank you. Staff?
Thank you, Commission. So I'm just going to give a real quick brief overview of the site itself. I know some people make site visits, but I want to give an introduction to it. So the 2 properties they were speaking of that occupied the lots prior to them being bought is Bohemian Crystal to the north, and then the Baker Fields restaurant to the south along Ogden. Both went out of business and sold the properties to Advocate. You'll notice that the property is an L shape, very similar to the Wendy's property to the south. The access points shown on the site plan I'll get into a little bit later on. However, the petitioner noted that.
Scott, can you or someone from Advocate put up on the monitor?
Yeah, I
the
can
site-
get
The
that.
site plan?
Give me 1 second. Dennis, I think it's static currently. It's up on this screen, so is it not showing up on those screens either?
No, it's just your same thing that's up there.
Dennis, are you able to refresh the page?
I think he's working on it.
I know.
The page labeled 49 of 70 of the larger sheets is the larger site plan.
You're good. Good.
Thank you, Dennis.
Okay. Everybody can see it now?
Yeah.
All good? So like I was saying, the lot being proposed and the current lot that was Bakerfield's is an L shape. And it matches the property to the south, which is the Wendy's, has a similar L shape as well. So going into some of the requests, they're requesting a platted consolidation for the two lots because there's two underlying lots, a site and landscaping plan request, or approval request, and a variance to illumination standards, which they touched on a little bit. The use itself, a medical office, is permitted in the underlying B2 district, so there's no special use required for this project. Getting into the plat, and I'm going to go through this in a logical order of how we look at it through planning, which is kind of the opposite of how we list it in the agenda. So the plat, the preliminary plan of consolidation is required due to the proposed underlying lots. During the same process, the village also obtains the necessary easements for the property. I'm noting that because there are some deed restrictions tied to this property that are still going through the process to be removed. You'll notice in the packet that you guys have the document labeled R1975-46530. It's a deed restriction on the property for utility easement on the east portion of the property along Ogden. It's a 10-foot easement, utility easement specifically. You'll notice that the building sits at 5 feet from the property line within that easement. Advocate has met with us and they're going through the necessary processes to get that vacated so they can place the building at that location without issues. However, they did note in their narrative that this is a risk for them to seek this approval without getting the vacation acquired first. What that means on their end is that if they need to relocate the building at all, or if they are unable to remove the easement, they would have to come back in if they plan on still going through with the project and changing that footprint to get an amended site plan approval and plan of consolidation. Moving forward, if they are approved and they move forward to the village board and are approved at the village board for the final plat, we would hold on to the record the platted consolidation to be recorded until we can verify that the easements were vacated, which they are aware of. So there is some background information in your packet regarding those deed restrictions and easements. Now, the site and landscaping approval, which is their second request, is required due to the underlying B2 zoning. They noted some key features of their property. I'm going to list some other key features that staff has noted and want to highlight. The first element is that the removal of the existing public access to Ogden Avenue. So you'll notice on the site plan itself, as shown, there is a drive to Ogden shown here with curb cuts to the parking lot. That is going to be used exclusively for emergency access for emergency vehicles. There is, I believe, a mountable curb along the parking lot, and there will be designated signs required there so people don't accidentally turn into the drive as requested by the fire department. So their main access, as they noted, is along Blackhawk Drive. From staff's level, we recommended that the petitioner have a traffic study and a parking study done to see if there's going to be issues related to the light along Blackhawk and Ogden. They came back and said that there wouldn't be issues according to the traffic study. That traffic study is within your packet and was provided to the public as well. Getting to some of the parking standards, they noted that they are in excess, which is correct. This type of use requires 183 spaces. They are showing 215. However, you'll notice there is a waiver request for a reduced stall size. As you know, waiver requests go to the village board directly. We don't usually talk about them here, but it is important to note because it is a part of their site plan. We've had similar requests for similar buildings, medical office buildings along Ogden that were approved, specifically Dooley Healthcare on the west side of Ogden. They were approved for a substandard waiver for 9 by 18 stall widths or area. They also noted that the building is going to be 45,000 square feet. The east portion of the property has the frontage along Ogden Avenue. They have a setback about 85 feet from Ogden with stormwater detention in the front. One thing they did not know in their presentation, but was in their narrative, is that there is a potential for expansion of the building if needed at a future time, what we were calling phase 2 in our comments. They haven't given any indication that they will move forward with those improvements to the building itself in the future. However, if they did, they'd have to come back to get an amended site plan approval for the building. Additionally, you'll notice that the makeup of the building is primarily masonry along the parking lot, masonry and stone. And along Ogden, I believe it's the south and east side, is primarily the corrugated metal. And that's due to the possible expansion of the building in the future. So they didn't want to provide the masonry on the side that they may expand. Lastly, they're also asking for a waiver from the village board for some landscaping, for the foundational landscaping, where 6 feet is required. They're asking for 4 feet for their limited access drive. Lastly, the variance request tied to this, as they've already noted with illumination standards, we have pretty strict illumination standards for our code. Section 4.15, as noted in your staff report. It reads that where outdoor lighting is provided on any lot, the light fixtures shall be so designed and so located as to confine the rays of the light within the boundaries of the lot itself. You'll notice on the photometric plan provided in your packet, they're over by 0.01 foot candle levels on some of the neighboring commercial properties. They also noted in the presentation that by the recommendation of staff, they provided shielding to downcast lighting so it doesn't move further across the property line. We have obviously variance standards that I won't list out because we've gone through them before. I know we have a new commissioner, so if you have any questions, feel free to ask about those requirements. They are listed in the staff report as well. And I'm open to any questions from the commission.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone from the public who would like to come and address this issue? Please, good evening. Just confirm that you have signed in, sir?
I did sign in, yeah. Scott Wilson, Wilson Management, we own the property to the east. And from a variance standpoint with the light, we have no problem whatsoever. So, I mean, we had graffiti in the old Bakersfield building before when it was vacant, so I think more light, the better it is. So it's especially with, you know, the crime factor and stuff, so we're all in favor of that. So it won't bother us one bit. So,
Understood.
and it's
Thank you very
beautiful
much.
building too, so.
Anyone else from the public? Seeing none, we'll move on to the commissioners. Commissioner Lavoy, would you like to begin?
Sure. I do have a couple of questions for the applicant. In looking at it, you've worked on this for quite a period of time and refined your application, and I see that it's very well done. I look at it for the first time less than a week ago, so my question really is almost like a knee-jerk reaction, and that is, why is the access from Ogden Avenue required?
The fire department, we've been talking with the fire department, and they asked for access, emergency only. They also asked us to raise our stair core to give them direct stair access to the roof, and we've talked with them about their fire equipment and providing access, and that road is what they requested.
Okay. Would you be putting a fence along the property line, along that access road?
There's one there now.
Would you be putting one?
I believe that is ours right now.
Okay, it is there, and that's going to stay.
Along
Looking at it
the
without-
Wendy's property.
Okay, but looking at it from the standpoint of, like I said, you know, my eyes first, a week ago, the way I would look at that is the tower ladder would not be able to erect their ladder because it's too close to the building. If they were going to erect a tower ladder, they would do it from the neighboring parking lot.
The understanding we have after talking with the fire department is we've met all of their requests.
Okay, I'm saying without knowing what the fire department review did, because I'm not privy to that information, other than what's in the package, of course, and I did see their comments, but it just, you know, kind of odd that we would have that there when it's really not necessary, because the tower ladder would go up in the parking lot adjacent, on both sides for that matter, not just on the west side of the building, but on the east side of the building too. So anyway, just a thought. I do have also a question on the stormwater, and that is that you met the requirement, the IDOT requirement of 10 feet plus 1.5 times the depth to the high water to the right-of-way line, which is 16 feet. You did not meet that on Blackhawk.
I could have our engineer come forward and comment to that. State your name and...
Hi, I'm Spencer Craig. I'm with Erickson Engineering, 145 Commerce Drive in Grays Lake, Illinois. We're the civil engineers for the project. So we worked with your consulting engineer and also village engineer in depth on stormwater management. There is an existing depressional area that's right up against the sidewalk as it is right now. Blackhawk Drive is not an IDOT, under IDOT jurisdiction. Yeah, so it's village jurisdiction, and there isn't a separation requirement there.
There isn't a separation requirement there because it is a village road, but
Correct.
I look at the plan, and I see the detention pond there, and I see that the limits, you could easily take that away from the sidewalk, so your high water isn't as close to the sidewalk without affecting anything else, because there seems to be plenty of room along Blackhawk to do that. So that's one observation that I'm looking at the plan, that maybe staff hasn't looked at the plan. The high water line would be like very close to the sidewalk.
We are several feet away from the sidewalk as it is now. It is farther away than the existing condition, and it is a 100-year high water elevation as well, I will
I
point
understand
out.
that.
Yeah. as
It's just
well.
that
So
I'm
we do
looking
have
at that
lanes-
available space, a little reconfiguration would keep it further away from the right-of-way. That's my comment. From just purely a site plan perspective, the garbage area is pretty far away from the building.
We gave priority to the handicap parking.
Yeah, well, obviously, but I see that, it's pretty far to route cars. It has nothing to do with, I'm looking at it purely from a planning perspective, saying, wow, that's pretty far to go every day for trash.
We have some sites that are longer, but in any event, we've provided the trash enclosure to meet. It's also an access point for the trucks so that they're not making sharp turns in the parking lot. If you see that they're lined up with the access drive to go straight out, we don't want them there long, and the straighter the shot, the easier.
Have you had success with the reduction in the parking space width on other sites?
That's our standard on other sites.
Okay. I don't have any other further questions. I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Scales?
Yes, thank you. Thanks for the presentation. I just have a couple of quick questions. How are you directing traffic to Blackhawk? How do folks know that that's their primary way to get inside of the main parking lot?
It's all intentional signage at this point. We will have signage directing at that emergency access point, not for public use. We'll work with the village on verbiage and as many signs as they want. They'll all be low at car height, so.
And Brad, if I may.
Yep.
We're also, that access is designed with a mountable curb. So it's not a depressed curb, it's not a barrier curb, but it is a mountable curb. We worked with Civil Tech, your consultant on that, as well as the fire department. So it will have a visual barrier type.
So if I'm coming east on Ogden and I'm going to make a left onto Blackhawk, how do I know to turn left onto Blackhawk as a patient or someone coming to the facility?
We will be bringing a signage package to you, we will be required to, but we will have intent of putting a monument sign near the front there, and below that would be the do not enter for regular patients.
Where would
Generally,
that, I'm sorry, where's that monument sign?
there's where the old Bakersfield sign was on Ogden,
Okay,
probably in that general area. And then any other directional signage would be lower that around the front entrance of that drive. And generally what we find is with our returning patients, they get it after the first time.
sure.
So we'll try everything at first point with the signage.
Will there be any signage on Blackhawk?
Yes, there'll be post and panel signs, smaller but visual signs, our standard signage package.
Okay. And that's coming later?
We have to apply separately.
Yeah, so that would likely be just through the permitting process. They are permitted to sign on Blackhawk and Ogden because they have two frontages.
But it has to be on their property, so there's.
Correct, yes.
Got it. Okay.
Commissioner Scales, if I may add, and the address will be 639 Blackhawk, so the previous address on Ogden will be removed completely.
Okay.
So, that was one of staff's concerns as well.
So that should help with,
Yeah, Google it, and
Maps,
that's
yeah.
where it'll take you.
makes sense. Okay. And then, I couldn't really tell, but are those existing curb cuts on Blackhawk, or are you moving those around?
There's 3 there now, and we're going to reduce it down to 2.
Two, okay.
And they're in generally the same location, the 2 that are remaining.
Okay, I don't have any further questions at this
Thank
time.
you. Sir, did you have a comment that you
Yeah.
wanted to?
Yeah, Thaddeus Sinzak, I'm with Advocate Health Construction Department as well. I just wanted to, and Joe alluded to it with the address. The address is on the Blackhawk Avenue, so all our search engines are going to direct our patients to that for directional wayfinding. Also, the clinic also calls ahead their patients. So I imagine for first patients, there's going to be some explanation to those patients to provide access to those to the site for the first time.
Okay, thank you for that, I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Commissioner Berry?
Thank you. I share the same concern Chris had with the entrance off Ogden. I think it maybe becomes more to staff. And I know, Doug, we touched on this the other day talking about it, but there's no emergency gate or speed bumps or anything like that, because it, with a high school a couple blocks away, already a heavy traffic area, it seems like there's going to be major cut through. And again, this isn't to you guys, I understand that the fire department, it just seems to me, it's very inviting. A sign isn't going to deter anybody from, we see that with our no lefts and everything else. I mean, so I guess I have, my biggest concern, and I didn't realize it was, us creating it for it, is the access off of Ogden.
So I'll speak to the comments received from the fire department, which they had discussions with back and forth about the specific requirement. So they spoke with the fire department regarding what would be required and what's not required. Fire department preferred to have a gate. However, the preference was not to have a gate from the petitioner. That's shown in the comments provided to you. In lieu of that, they're having the signage posted that says "Do not enter," as shown on the plans. Other than that, staff doesn't have any requirements for the fire access lane. Fire access lane is required by the fire department from their reviews, from the Fire Prevention Bureau, I should say. So that's where that access is coming from.
And if I may add, Commissioner Berry, they started their talks with the fire department very early, and the fire department felt very adamantly that this should be a paved surface. I believe they anticipate that they see a certain increase in volume in calls, especially for the ambulance on these types of facilities, and I believe that every time there's an ambulance call, they anticipate using this. So early in the talks, there was talk of a gate with an automatic opening, and then after discussions, it was removed, and the fire department indicated, well, they can't require it. It's a preference.
But the village could, we could, right?
Before you is a site plan approval, so you
Yeah.
could make that as a condition of approval if you felt that was.
Because it seems to me there has to be something. I mean, like a double-sided, one of those shark things or big speed bumps or something, because, I mean, we've made streets one way around there because of the high school traffic that, in the mornings and when they get out, and then put that next to two fast food places, it's really inviting there to be a race through. So, now that I have a little more of the backstory on it, and I apologize if I didn't catch that in the packet, I would definitely like to see something there that would not make it such a, pass-through. So that's been my only issue with it. The rest of it just looks really great, guys. I mean, it looks like it's gonna be a wonderful addition. I know, the restaurants and everything like that are really excited to hear those kind of numbers coming into town and the gas stations and everything else. So, it's an exciting project. We do worry about the safety, though, of the people, in the parking lot and stuff, if it's gonna become a cut-through. And then again, I think my second thing is also to staff, instead of making them wait for that easement, why not just grant them a variance on the side lot setback?
So the easement is a requirement with the deed restriction, not with the village itself. It's a utility easement. It was a deed restriction, I believe, when Red Lobster was there with their subdivision. So they have to go through the proper legal process to get it removed. We were unable on our end to do it without them going through that process, so.
We're committed to doing that process. Those are old setbacks. They're actually, we're trying to meet the village's current setbacks. So there are no utilities. There's only one major utility through the north side of the Bakersfield site, as it would call it. But there were no other utilities, so we wanted to reduce that down and meet the village's ordinance required easements.
So they'll meet the required zoning setbacks.
Yeah, okay. those are my questions. It looks like a great project, guys.
I did want to follow up just real briefly on the, excuse me, the gate concept. Been working with the traffic consultants as well. One of the concerns relative to a gate is that, you know, if a car comes into that drive and then faces that gate, now they have to back up into Ogden Avenue to then get out of the site. So you know, if it's not an emergency vehicle that has access to operate that gate. That was one of the other considerations.
Depending on where that gate was located, I guess, would be that, right? I mean, if
It's 15 feet in, which is the car length, you know, they still got to get out.
Right.
So they'd have to back out into traffic.
Now, that access is 2 vehicles wide, is it not?
It's,
It's a
fire
two-way-
department
it's-
requires 24 feet, I believe.
So the emergency vehicles would be both in and out,
The
ingress
intent
and
was
egress.
to be one way, but we can't stop the.
Yeah, the entrance kind of calls for one way because
The curve.
you wouldn't want to be taking a left out of there.
Okay.
So then, if a gate becomes off limits, then the village, do we still have a no speed limit or a no speed hump rule then too on the drive?
It's a private drive.
They'd already be on.
Yeah. Private drive.
So it would be allowed?
We wouldn't have a requirement or a restriction. So
Unless the
if-
fire department objected, because it's primarily for their use.
Yeah.
And so, Mr. Chair and Trustee, or I'm sorry, Commissioner Berry, it's 20 feet wide. I think that the fire department allowed it to be reduced. Maybe it is.
I believe it's 21.
21.
Yeah.
It is intended to be one way in, and that's because I believe that there was a standard of 24 for the fire department. They were able to find some exceptions to get it down to 21. It was supposed to be one way going in, and that's so they could get quick access into the site when necessary. It is actually wide enough for our 2-way drive aisle for regular traffic, if that's what they were proposing. But the conflict is when you come up that drive where you hit the kind of half moon where everyone's turning, that becomes a primary conflict with the pedestrians that are parking in the handicap spaces and have to cross over it. Because we did have multiple discussions on, well, can we keep this as a full access drive with a right in, right out onto Ogden? And that was the hindrance, was that it created too many pedestrian conflicts. But we did have multiple conversations on, could this be more than just an emergency access drive? Because we had the same concerns about, once you've learned once that you can go through there, you're probably going to go through there every
Well,
time.
and you're talking, handicap parking, you're talking heavy pedestrian area, so we never want to create a life safety issue. And so that's one of those things that if we put something on here, again, with no fire department representation here tonight, we can't answer that question, whether they would allow speed humps or some type of, restrictive to the speed in there, because to me, that would be a deterrent. So, but again, great project, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I just have a quick question, if I might. Somebody mentioned ambulances getting through there, and pardon my ignorance here, but this is an emergency facility.
It is not. It
Would
is
there
not
be-
intended, it is, but typically at these, you get a patient who has a cardiac event, and it's just like any other business.
While they're on site?
Yeah, it's just
Got it.
like any other business.
Fair
Got to get an emergency vehicle there. Yeah, it is
I have
not a
question
destination
staff.
for
Has
ambulances.
IDOT seen this plan?
Not yet. We know we have to go to IDOT for the driveways, because we're vacating one of the Ogden Avenue entrances, which we're pretty certain they'll accept. So we're going down from 2 to 1 on Ogden Avenue.
Yeah, I would say that turning radius is going to be an issue at IDOT. That curb return to the
Sorry.
west.
Actually, we'll be going from 2 access, full access points to 0, basically just have the emergency access.
For public.
And, yeah, for public, and this is inbound only. So we have the radius for the inbound traffic, and we have provided auto turn exhibits and worked with the fire department for the inbound, both heading eastbound on Ogden and westbound on Ogden into the site.
Okay.
Commissioner Peterson, what say you?
This, you know, this part of the building, which will be by the parking lot, is very attractive. Having the part of the building that faces Ogden Avenue, and I understand that, you know, maybe future addition, but there's no guarantee that's gonna happen. And I know it's probably too late now, but I just wanted to voice my opinion that the metal part facing Ogden Avenue, I don't think aesthetically is as nice as basically the back of the building. Like I say, I know at this point, it's probably too late to do anything, but, you know, Ogden is the main thoroughfare where things should look nice. And like I say, this is beautiful, the part facing the parking lot, which nobody's really gonna see unless you go into the parking lot. The other thing too is the lack of landscaping is kind of disappointing. I know it meets with everything, but like I say, I just wanted it noted that even though it's on Ogden Avenue and Blackhawk, I still think a little more landscaping could have been added to make it look a little bit better. So, and all my other questions were answered, so thank you. Nice project.
Commissioner Thomas.
Hi. Yeah, most of my questions also, except the parking stall waiver. If you are not given that, the waiver, how many spots do you lose?
So if they go from 9 by 18 to 10 by 20?
Yeah, I actually don't have an exact number on that, but I believe we would be then below the, well, actually, certainly below what your requirement is in terms of the advocate.
It would be below what?
It would be below, we have a standard of no less than 4 to 1, and it would be below our standard.
As a company?
As a company. But almost all the projects I've done recently have all been the 18 by
9 by 18. We will, that's basically a standard throughout the industry. We understand in the village, it was changed. I can't remember exactly what it was changed, Joe, but.
If I can explain quickly, and I'm sorry, Scott, did you want to do it? So what it is the village has a basic 10 by 20 parking stall standard size. Now, there are exceptions if you have some overhang for your front bumper, but then you have to keep the landscape away the front of it. But we actually divide our parking requirements based on the length of time you need to use the parking space. So basically, we have long-term parking spaces and short-term parking spaces. And short-term parking spaces are the 10 by 20 standard. So if we have a grocery store, we like the 10 by 20 because those are high turnaround spaces. Those are people pulling in, pulling out, lots of movements. We permit 9 by 18 spaces when they're long-term, and that's typically our offices. That's where you come and you park for 8 hours, and that is allowed without any kind of waiver at all. That's basically determined. In this case, they've got a use where they have both employees and some high turnover. I believe I heard the first person speak and said you were anticipating 100 patients a day. I would guess that's, over an 8-hour period, so, that's less than 10 or 12, or my math is terrible when everyone's watching me. At any given time when you distribute it out. So I think that the question is do you feel it's appropriate to have the 9 by 18 universally for the volume that is anticipated. What we didn't want to do was have half the parking lot at 10 by 20 and half the parking lot that serves the employees at 9 by 18. So that's why Scott did his research and said, well, wait a minute, we had a very similar use that was just constructed in the village. What did we permit there? And there they made a similar request to the 9 by 18 that was approved.
And we recommended approval of that one on duly.
So I'm sorry, Scott, if you wanted to cover that.
Got
so.
what I was going to say.
That was my question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Zakari, your turn.
Thanks, guys. My question is similar to Commissioner Peterson's around the expansion. It's probably a question for staff. In approving the site and landscaping plan and the elevations now, are those elevations locked in if they were to come for the expansion? Just in the similar vein of like that front facade and changing it later, are these elevations, would they remain consistent, or is that something that when they came back before the board, they would resubmit as, new site and landscape plan?
So we have elevations that are approved with the site plan approval. The ones shown here have the corrugated metal on Ogden. Those would be approved, if approved at the board, would be adopted. That's what the materials would be required to be the same. If they decided to move forward with the expansion, they'd have to come back in for site plan approval, which includes new elevations.
So they come before this commission and then they go to the village board.
Got it. And at which point, if the commission, to Commissioner Peterson's point, wanted a different look, that could be up for discussion at that point?
Correct. As a matter of fact, the look that's before you now is up for discussion tonight.
Correct.
You can request, I know Commissioner Peterson, you said, well, it's too late now, but, that's why this public hearing is being held, so you can voice your comments. And if you're opposed to a site plan because of the building elevations on one side of the property, you can vote against this, you can request that it be postponed, or you can ask the applicant if they would consider enhancements to that between, now and the time they get in front of the village board. It would help to provide some direction if that's how you feel about what you'd like to see specifically. But, and I understand the applicant saying we don't want to invest money on that facade because the plan is to expand it.
The plan is to expand, and we do have various options to add more hard surface later on. At one point, we presented 3 options we have in our back pocket, but for the future expansion, because we wouldn't want to keep it all metal at the final point.
And if we asked the petitioner, so what he's indicating is in your packet, there was at least one of the pictures of the potential elevation that they wanted to show if they did an expansion. This is kind of within their corporate model of how the buildings typically look. That is not being adopted tonight. That could always be requested to be something different. I think what you need to consider tonight is that what you're approving is the elevation that shows the corrugated metal as shown. There's nothing that says that they don't pursue an expansion, so it means that you have to be happy with the elevation that's shown. Otherwise, you could always ask to amend the motion to have a better elevation, and what the attorney was trying to say is, you have several ways to do that. You could vote no. You could say, recommend a continuance so that the petitioner can revise it and bring it back to this group. Or you could authorize changes with staff to improve it, but still send it to the board for consideration.
That would propose a fourth option?
Yes, absolutely.
And that would be in the event that the building is not expanded within a certain time frame, like 7 years, 10 years, they have to come back, excuse me, for an amended site plan showing an enhanced facade on their south side facing Ogden Avenue. That could be made as a separate standalone motion to the site plan item.
I agree that that could be done. I think that might place a hardship on staff with an existing business to say, you've reached a point, come back in and see us. But that is an absolute option, and it might be a warranted option. I do also, I believe their setback right now is 85 feet.
Yes.
And there will be landscaping that will be next to the building that will grow up. So it is not very close to the street is what I'm trying to illustrate. So if you're dissatisfied with the current elevation, however, you're not feeling strongly about, well, should they improve it? It is 85 feet away from the setback. I believe the setback here is required to be 30 feet, so it is a considerable distance away from the street.
And partially screened.
And partially screened, so.
That's it for
Mr.
me.
Carey, is that it?
Yeah, that's it for me. That was my comment.
I would ask the petitioner, on any other projects, have you done a phase two? And so that you could give us some illumination on that after X number of years and other projects you have.
One that comes to mind very quickly is in Des Plaines. Within 2 years, we built another addition. It became a very good site with the traffic flow. And that was on a very visible corner of the building, too. Up in 2 years, we took the metal off and we put stone on the final product. I think we've done it one other time. I can't tell you right now. The program's been in existence. We have this package, we call it a branding package, with this metal siding, stone, and masonry. And that's what we like to stick with that. That's our brand of the building. You know what you're seeing when you're driving through the communities. They may not all be metal on the front or stone on the front. They vary. We just try to mix those up. This particular one with that frontage, though, we've tried to leave it metal right now with the understanding, because staff did come to us and say that we'd like to see more, and in the future, we have no problem doing it.
All right, thank you. Well, this was my, I wouldn't call it a sticking point, but my certain recommendation, but the fact that, one, that it is, that edifice is 85 feet back from Ogden, it's not right up there. I wouldn't have this be be a stopping point. I wouldn't try to force them to, go forward with changing the facade. That's me personally. Any other commissioners have any comments before?
Commissioner,
Yes.
just thinking as, from your comments in regard to the gate and cars backing up and things like that, I think I'd almost rather have that scenario happen 6 times a year than the daily occurrence of the cut-through. So I guess my question becomes site approval with the caveat that there is some kind of speed restriction there approved by the fire department. It sounds like the fire department would already approve a gate, but not required. So to me, that solves it, and if somebody gets caught up in there and has to deal with it, that's less of a life safety danger, I think, than the continuous cut through off of Ogden, to Black Hawk to avoid the light.
Could we compromise and put speed bump at the entrance and then defer the decision for?
Well, I think that would be the question is, would the fire department allow the speed hump? That, right, we don't know that tonight, that if, they may say no to the speed hump, but we don't know that.
As recommendation from staff, I'd say if we were to go that route and place a condition on the site plan, we'd probably have to indicate that if the fire department has any issues with that recommendation. I also know IDOT has requirements for Ogden, so a speed bump may not be able to happen there. So if we do go that route, I'd prefer if we place a condition on it So if we're unable to do it for those restrictions or regulations.
Then it has to go back to the gate,
Yeah.
you
So,
know? Whether it's an expense, I don't know what the,
Is the speed bump a great idea for like a great option for a ambulance to go through or something along those lines?
I can tell you from my non-professional research into speed bumps, they're not favored.
Yeah,
They
that's what I
can
would
create
think.
a lot of noise.
Yep.
Unnecessary
Snow
wear and
removal.
Tear
Yeah.
on vehicles, there's a snow removal issue. They're generally not favored as a traffic calming
Yeah.
device, and I know the village manager is a professional traffic engineer, and I don't believe he favors those. But this would be a private drive, so
Yeah.
if IDOT didn't have a problem and the fire department didn't, they could legally put in a speed hump or, as you said, a gate.
and there's many advanced things. I boat, I see things at boat ramps that are, one way where they pop back up and, you can only go one way and you have to slow down to go over them. So, I mean, there's not maybe just speed humps or, and maybe John, you could help me with the verbiage here of how I would want to make sure that we do something to make sure that doesn't become a major pass-through where people are going to be crossing there.
Yeah, I think once we get through the voting recommendation on the agenda items, then we can work on language for a motion that you can make and see if it gets seconded and approved about requiring the applicant to install a gate or traffic humps or other traffic calming devices, provided they receive approval from the Westmont Fire Department and IDOT.
I think
And they're still
that's
waiting
gonna be-
IDOT's purview, correct? You're still waiting.
I don't think they've even submitted yet to IDOT from what they said.
So we think IDOT might be a challenge for a gate.
I would think so, with people backing up, waiting to turn into that. I
think
can't see
so.
them approving that at all.
Yeah.
And I would point out that on page 10, under your application response letter and the discussions that you had with the Westmont Fire Department on the 7th of February, that the fire department confirmed that security gates across the fire apparatus access road is not required, and it was confirmed by the fire department that the standard signage designating the road for fire access only is preferred. And I'm saying if
Can I have a
the
follow-up?
fire
Doug?
department's not
Yeah.
making a big deal out of this gate.
So that expansion along Ogden Avenue, you have a current stormwater system there. What would happen to that if the expansion takes place?
We have an engineered storage system, which would be increased over in the north side of the parking lot, underground, under pavement. So they would be chambers underground to pick up that.
But your
additional-
whole storm sewer system would drain towards the basin that you're proposing according to this plan, and you would have to take all that piping out and
Yeah,
then
that is
reroute it the other direction?
It is designed that way right now, to drain to that, part of the site to drain in front of the building on Ogden, and then it is also to flow back to Blackhawk. All of our storm leads to the back of the site, to the north side of the site. So,
Yeah, I can follow up with what Brad had said there. In working with EZA, we're maintaining the existing drainage patterns. So essentially all Bakersfield right now, with the exception of a small sliver along Ogden Avenue, does flow to the northwest via their storm sewer system.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, to the far northwest corner of the property. So we're maintaining that. In phase one, we do have the surface basin that you had mentioned before.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, along with, as you can see up here along the thick dashed lines
Yeah.
up near the north parking spaces, that's an underground detention vault. What phase two would do would be to expand that underground where we have the existing surface basin, and then cover that over with the other parking.
Okay.
That we-
I can't help but to ask another follow-up question, if you don't mind. Especially that the neighboring property owner is here and testified in favor of the project. It seems to me that IDOT, their normal response is eliminate access on Ogden Avenue. That's their normal deal. What would be wrong with sharing that access to the neighboring property to the east and not having this small restricted radius and entrance to come in. Why can't you come in off of the neighboring property to gain access there?
Yeah, I'm going to pull up the exhibit.
There's an existing
again.
full access there. You can see only one half of the return. It might take a dedicated
you're
space or
talking
two, but
The
you
east
could,
of our property?
yes,
The adjacent property
Yes.
owner?
yes.
That share that
Yeah,
access?
he's here tonight.
Right.
So, as far as our lot, we're, sorry.
Thank you.
As far as our property to the east, we're like exactly to the number of parking spots.
Okay,
so
I just
there's
didn't
no-
know. I couldn't help but to ask, so I get it, that's not even part of the package, not part of our approval process, but I think out of the box, and I look at that access and, you know, what, it's marginal and doesn't really work for us, for a lot of us, so that access point needs to be refined.
Anybody else? Okay. At this point, Chair would entertain a motion to approve under public hearing PZC 046-20323. First, zoning ordinance variance request to permit outdoor lighting in excess of illumination standards.
Motion scales.
Do I have a second?
Second, Thomas.
Motion approved, Scales, second, Thomas.
always wins out.
Discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Zakari,
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson votes yes, Commissioner Berry,
No.
Commissioner Scales,
Yes.
Commissioner Lavoy,
No,
I'm sorry,
no.
and Chairperson Carmichael.
Yes. Number 2, site and landscaping plan approval.
Motion scales.
Second, Barry?
Motion and second. Discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson votes yes, Commissioner Berry,
Yes.
Commissioner Scales,
Yes.
Commissioner Lavoy,
Yes.
Commissioner Zakari,
Yes.
Chairperson Carmichael.
Yes. And item 3, preliminary plat of subdivision to consolidate 2 lots into 1 lot.
Motion scales.
Second, Barry?
Motion and second. Discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Commissioner Peterson votes yes, Commissioner Berry,
Yes.
Commissioner Scales,
Yes.
Commissioner Lavoy,
Yes.
Commissioner Zakari,
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Chairperson Carmichael.
Yes. Item 4, foundation landscape waiver.
Commissioner Chair, waivers don't go through planning and zoning, they go straight to the village board. So there's no vote on the 2 waiver
I was
requests.
gonna say, I don't have a 4. You're scaring me.
Okay, I'm off the other,
It's shown on the agenda.
the other sheet there. I apologize.
Go to the publication notice.
I'd have to double check. I believe it's on the agenda, but not publication. So,
But, yeah,
we generally, if there's a waiver request tied to a site plan, they're voting on the site plan is in conjunction with that waiver.
Okay, same with the site. plan,
Correct,
With the parking size
Sad,
waiver.
I didn't understand it.
Then, we have all 3 items approved, gentlemen, and staff will notify you when you're scheduled to appear before the village board.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know what I mean? It's like, why even waste the time of everyone, you know? Oh, yeah, great. Commissioner, afterwards. I don't know why. Yeah, you'll be closer to home. It'll save you 5 minutes. Well, that's great. There was a mayor, Pasquinelli.
Are we waiting on John?
No, I'm just waiting on Scott. Okay. Item B, a public hearing, PZC 040-2023. Request from OSRX Enterprises, the petitioner, and Millennium Trust, the owner, for a 6-unit townhouse project at 22 and 26 West Burlington Avenue in Westmont for the following. We have 7 items. First, a zoning ordinance variance request to allow a driveway to encroach into the required 3-foot side yard setback for a driveway. Second, a zoning ordinance variance request to the required lot areas per building and per dwelling in the R5 General Residence District. Third, the zoning ordinance variance request to the required front yard setback in the R5 General Residence District. Fourth, a zoning ordinance variance request to the required side yard adjoining a street setback in the R5 General Residence District. Sixth, a site and landscaping plan approval. And finally, a preliminary plat of subdivision to re-subdivide 2 lots into 7 lots. Good evening.
Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. My name's Greg Stevens, and I'm here with my wife and our team, our architect and our engineer. Thank you for giving us this time to present our vision for the vacant lot on the corner of West Burlington Avenue and North Lincoln Avenue, across the street from the metro station. Currently, this lot has been vacant for about 20 years. It's an underperforming asset for the village and adds little contribution to the surrounding area. This is a challenging site to develop, and with the help and direction of staff and our team, we have put forth the best design and use for this parcel of land. We have worked hard with staff and our team over many months and would like to acknowledge their hard work on this project. We propose to you West Burlington Place, a development of 6 townhomes for sale. The development is directly in line with the master plan to increase density around the downtown area of Westmont. These units are designed to be stylish, aesthetically appearing, and keep a positive trend of surrounding communities. And Ellie will now share a quick slide presentation for you.
If you go right, they'll move it, I believe.
Good evening. Please follow me through the alley. This is the view from Lincoln facing the alley. And
your name, please?
Ellie Stevens.
Could you speak up?
Usually most people tell me. So from facing Lincoln Avenue down the alley, you can see the dumpsters are free floating. We kept that in mind with the design that we have for our design site. As you can see, the alley is gravel, with the village having plans in the future to develop that area. This is the vacant lot that you can see from Burlington Avenue. And on this vacant lot, we propose this beautiful, aesthetically pleasing building for this land in trend with the neighboring communities. An example is Elmhurst. They have no brick, new construction, very beautiful. It's near the downtown area, not far from the train. Another building, it's kind of more a cookie cutter building, but it's in Naperville, and it's approved with no brick, and they have these new materials that are supposed to be more durable. So no siding, no brick. Another building, and of course we're asking for increased density, and right down the street here on Quincy, their density is 21.2. The density we propose is 19.5. The building next to it in Downers Grove, It's in downtown, right across from the train, and that's even more dense than our building. This is the parking for Downers Grove, and the reason I'm showing this is that to park, you need to enter underneath a building. And one of the reasons we have the design that we have in our design is that the village did not want us to have parking where you drive under something that's not totally supported. This is another building with high density near the train and near downtown Downers Grove. This is a building nearby on Fairview and Burlington. You can see the design is very modern, little brick, and these trends are welcoming to the community. And this is with a much higher density also. And this is a building in our neighbor in Clarendon Hills, and again, across from the train, near their downtown, with high density. And right adjacent to that, right now under construction, is them to build more like this, and you can kind of see from the rendering it's going to be the same as the one next door. And then you can see this is the property that we wish to put a 6-unit townhome on, which is across from the train and near downtown, where people who live there can walk to the restaurants and the businesses there. And with this site plan, with the variances as far as the front yard and the side yard, we propose like 14 feet of setback. The current code is 25. But what we're showing is the neighbor, which you can see on the next slide, is the same exact. So it's just like 14, so nobody has 25 as current code. And off of Lincoln Avenue, we're at 19, and then it graduates, and it's even more than 19 with some of the indents in architecture. And I'll show you in another slide that the house next door to that is 16, so we actually have more setback than the neighboring house. And as far as in the first slide where we showed the dumpsters just floating around, we do have the brick pads to have the garbage cans, so they will be put out once a week. So there's no dumpsters there to be floating around or being damaged. The owners will take and put their garbage out once a week, like most people do, and just leave it out there for the 24 hours and then bring it. Then the garbage will be, their big garbage can in the garage until they fill it up and bring it out once a week for the garbage truck to pick it up. The other is the driveway off of Lincoln, and so we are proposing 1.5 feet. The code is 3 feet, so very, very close. And the rear yard, we're at 6 feet. If you add the alley, that's 16 feet, so we're about 22 feet. The code's about 27. It's just a percentage of the total lot size. This is showing Burlington Avenue, so you can see that the setback there is similar to what we would do. It's about 13, 14 feet, so we would be just right in line with what's there. And on Lincoln Avenue, the house behind us, 16.8 feet setback on Lincoln, and we're much more than that. And on the other side of the street, there's 0 setback for the one-story building on the east side of Lincoln. And this is a south elevation, and the east elevation, and the north elevation. This would be what you would see from the alley, and we propose to have a aluminum sliding fence there, and that would meet all the codes of the fire department with emergency access. And then this is the west elevation, and the first floor, each townhome would have a 2-car garage, and the second floor and the third floor. And the landscape plan, our landscape architect had worked with Doug Shannon, the village landscape architect, on making sure that we're up to code for our architecture. One of the issues is removing the tree, because it's right where the driveway is. So we met with the forester, and we took measurements trying to figure out if we could do another design to save the tree, and there was no way we could save the tree. So we offered to put 3 trees in its place, but we would need to seek approval of the forester. Forester would like to keep the tree, but he said he was open to whatever the village would decide, and he would work with that.
Thank you. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a lot to say, so I apologize in advance. So what's before you tonight is a 6-unit townhome project on the vacant property across the street from us here, across from the train station. So as they indicated, this has sat vacant for many years. I believe there were 2 houses on this property at one point. They were taken down. The first thing is that they are taking 2 underlying lots, and they want to create 7 underlying lots. So why is it 6 townhomes and 7 lots? So the first thing is they're trying to create lots that are for sale. So basically, these are for sale townhome units. So if there's a question of are these apartments or are these for sale, these are for sale units. The 7th lot is basically a lot that's created behind the building where the primary access drive is to all the garages. And it also contains the required stormwater underground. So that would be owned by the HOA and basically maintained by the HOA. But actually, they're fee simple lots for sale for the townhomes themselves. Several variances are requested. This is the R5 zoning district. That is our most dense zoning district. I'm going to speak to density here in a moment, but basically, the R5 is a zoning district that primarily lines Burlington and Quincy. However, we do have pockets of that R5 district all throughout the village, including all the way up on 35th Street. I think Tartan Lakes is R5. Pretty far south, I think the Axis apartment units and Twin Lake Towers, those are zoned R5. So R5 is not exclusive to the downtown. It's distributed out through the village. I've had several questions about density on this project because obviously they're proposing a density which is about, I think they said 19.5. I'm going to use more round numbers. It's about 20 dwelling units per acre. Now, you are correct if you say, Joe, I don't see anything in the code that talks about dwelling units per acre. We have a very complex density table. And so it says, what is your product? What kind of housing are you trying to build? Next, we say, how many bedrooms does that product have? And then we say there's a minimum lot size based on the number of buildings you have, and there's a minimum lot size based on the number of units you have. So in this case, these are both single-family attached units and single-family semi-detached units. So basically, the units that are in the middle are single-family attached. The units that are on the end are single-family semi-detached. So our code is already confusing based on housing type. We use whatever there are the most of. So there are most single-family attached units because there's 4 internal units. So that sets our basis on how we do analysis on, well, how many units are allowed to be there. Our code says that for 3-bedroom units, these are all 3-bedroom units, a minimum of 4,500 square feet of land area is required for 3-bedroom units. So if we were looking at this and said, well, the lot is about 13,000 square feet, how many units does our code allow on this site right next to the metro station and 1 block off of Cass? It allows 2. So our code allows 2. It's actually 2.98, but we always round down because you can't have 0.98 of a unit. So the whole units, our code allows 2 on this site by right. That equates to how many dwelling units per acre? That equates to about 9.7 dwelling units per acre is what our densities allow in Westmont for this zoning district. So basically, our most dense zoning district allows almost 7 dwelling units per acre. That is fairly low in terms of density. The R5 district, if you remember, I said was distributed out all through the village. It's not just exclusive to the tracts, to the Burlington and Quincy area. It has a front yard setback of 25 feet. It has a density of 9.7. Many other requirements, obviously. I think what you need to ask yourself tonight as you're looking at this case is, if this was down on 63rd, would those be appropriate setbacks and densities? If this was up on 35th, would those be appropriate setbacks and densities? And when you're on Burlington in our downtown, are those appropriate setbacks and densities? So what the petitioner has tried to do is first say, well, are there comparables? So you heard the petitioner talk about the setbacks of the properties around them. So what they tried to do was be sensitive to the buildings around them and somewhat match the setbacks. So that's why they touched on that. Since I did get a lot of questions on density, I gave you that 9.7 is what's allowed. I gave you that 19.5 or 20 is what's requested. I went ahead and did a quick reconnaissance of other projects that I think you might want to know. How dense are they? So first, there was a project that was approved on this site in 2005 that never got built. That was a condominium building. It was 4 stories tall. That was approved, and I'm not saying that because it was approved, that should influence the decision tonight. I just want you to know that a project on this property at 39 dwelling units per acre was previously approved. The building right next to this, so there is an apartment building that is directly to the west of this. That property is at 36 dwelling units per acre. Now, I know 36 sounds like a lot, but it's a really small lot. It has 4 units. They're all 2-bedroom units. That equates to 36 dwelling units per acre. Some other projects, which may or may not be comparable, but I figured you might want the numbers. Richmond Station, so that is in the downtown. They are at 32 dwelling units per acre. Quincy Station, our newest building, was at 105 dwelling units per acre. One North Cass, which never got built, that was 112 dwelling units per acre. And then I pulled some what I think are closer in terms of comparability. 210 North Cass, which is the building just north of the convenience store. I think it's right next to the Korean restaurant. So it's got townhomes above and first floor commercial. That project is 28.5 dwelling units per acre. Quincy Street Station Homes, which if you know the Metro parking lot right out here on Quincy, it's the 4 pretty 3.5-story kind of stone and brick townhomes right at the end, where they only built 4 of them, but there were supposed to be 18 built. That project was 21 dwelling units per acre. Quincy Commons, which if you know the 4-unit townhouses on the south side of Quincy, across from those are at 13 dwelling units per acre. And then Cass Avenue Dream Homes, which is our most recent townhouse project, which is in the 500 block of Cass, is about 12.6 dwelling units per acre. So what I wanted to do is give you some of our most recent projects that were on the higher density side so that you had some comparables to say, how does this 19.5 that's requested compare to some of these others? And I am happy to elaborate as much as I can based on the information I just gave to you. So I believe it is number 2, which is the variance request for the density. That, to me, was most important to cover early so that it kind of sets the discussion for the rest. Number 1 is a zoning ordinance variance request for a driveway that is within a 3-foot side yard. If you look at the site plan, if I can ask Scott to put the site plan back up. Lot 3, which is the corner unit right on the corner of Burlington and Lincoln. They have a garage that does not access from the behind the building like the others do. Because when you build an L-shaped building, you can't get into the corner from behind. So they do have a driveway out on that side of the street. If you look at that driveway, it abuts Lot 4 very closely. So it does not meet a minimum 3-foot distance away from the neighbor's property line. So that is what that variance request is there. We did work with the applicant very closely about that driveway. It does have to be a certain distance away from the stop sign that's at Burlington. It's a minimum of 30 feet. It does meet that minimum of 30 feet. I think you heard them say it does put it right where a parkway tree is, so they would have to remove a parkway tree. Our village forester, of course, does not want to see the removal of that parkway tree, but has acknowledged if the site plan's approved, there are remedies to remediate that. The driveway is approximately 20 feet deep. That was very important to staff because we didn't want anyone to park a car there that overhung and blocked the sidewalk. So that's why there's a depth there on that driveway. If you really got into the nuances of the materials we gave you a draft document of the HOA documents, the covenants that would regulate this. They have written in their documents that no car should sit there for more than 12 hours. As an HOA, they want to make sure that no one just parks a car there and leaves it to sit. They obviously want it moving. I think the intention of that clause is so that people park their car in the garage versus parking it outside all the time. There is a zoning variance request to the front yard setback. The front yard on this house is Burlington. The requirement is 25 feet. It gets as close as 12.33 feet. But look at the front elevation of that house. They have stepped it forwards and backwards. The 12.33 is the absolute closest, which is about the width of one unit that would be that close. They did try to meet the setback of the property to the west, and then it kind of steps a little bit closer to the street as you get closer to the corner. The next variance request is to the side yard adjoining the street. So if we call Burlington the front, the side yard is Lincoln Avenue. So that is the second request for a setback. It is again a 25-foot setback. That gets fairly close to the street on that Lot 4 unit. And then they try to step it back just like they did on the Burlington Avenue side, in particular to be very close to the setback for the house to the north of the alley. So there is a single-family house on the north of this property at the alley. There is a rear yard setback variance requested. The rear yard setback required is 20% of lot depth, which works out to be about 28 feet. They are asking for 6 feet. And that is because they felt it was important that there was a wall of townhomes that face the Lincoln side, just like there's a wall of townhomes that face the Burlington side. There is a 6-foot setback. If you'll notice, you'll see all the little squares on the site plan. That's where they anticipate that one day a week, that's where they'll, each unit owner will move their garbage out to get picked up by the trash recycler. There is a site and landscape approval that is here for consideration. Obviously, the site plan encompasses the building, the setbacks, the tree removal. There is landscape that is provided that meets our minimum standards. It is a small site, though, so there's not a lot of landscaping. And when you ask for reduced setbacks, it does reduce the area for landscaping. And then there's finally that preliminary plat of subdivision, which is taking the 2 underlying lots and re-subdividing those out into 7 lots. So I covered a lot. I don't want to overwhelm anyone, especially my new commissioner. I'm sure there will be questions. I'm happy to discuss them. All other requirements that aren't listed are met, such as height. So 35 feet is the height requirement in this district. It is met. Of particular note, you'll notice I didn't talk about parking. There is no minimum parking requirement for a project like this. So they've provided 2 parking spaces in each garage. Obviously, Unit 3 has room outside for at least 1 more car, but can't leave it sit there per their HOA documents. There would be no parking behind the building. At one point, they did show 2 parallel parking spaces on the far west side where you see now it's a big curbed area, and that's because they wanted to address snow storage when snow hit. So that's why they pulled out the parking spaces there. But there is no minimum requirement. You heard them and you saw them show a lot of examples of other projects. Obviously, we do have downtown design guidelines on buildings. The preference does say brick or stone. The reason they presented that is they want to show that they are on trend with what some of the other communities are doing. I believe they have added brick at the entryways to all the doors. It's kind of that dark black brick, I think is what they show there. And then they did take pieces of our design guidelines, in particular that we have some 50s architecture in the downtown, some more modernistic. They have their architect here. He's very passionate about the design. I'm sure he can elaborate that on that as well. Okay?
Thank you, Joe. Is there anyone from the public who'd like to address the commission? Good evening.
Stephen Fleck, 11 North Washington. First off, I do think the design is beautiful. It's nice. However, based on the size of this lot, and I understand that the density that we're talking about are numbers, but I think when we compare it to locations of other spaces in town, Twin Lakes, that's been there since 60s, 70s, whatever, big open land space, high-rise building, or mid-rise, I guess we would call it, and I understand we got Quincy Station here, which is more rental units, and I understand they want to break this up so that they would be, yes, taxable units individually and everything here, but in a nutshell, I feel like it's 10 pounds of doo-doo in a 2-pound bag. And we just have to really find this happy medium of where downtown is going and when does it stop before residential homes that are what I would call outside a downtown district. Even if the zoning may be there, I would be fine with something like this being built there, but I think it needs to be less units. And that's just as a resident looking at this, saying great units, finally something going on that space, but it's just too much in such a small area, and the being on the corner there, I think it's just, and I'm in agreement with being in line in the setback on Burlington, so things look consistent, but it's just too much. Maybe 4 units if it was redesigned differently or something along that line. But as a resident, I think we have to find this happy medium where these aren't brownstones being lined up downtown one after another. And we have to find that separation between where's the new generation going downtown and where do people still have yards and yard space. So that's just my opinion.
All right, thank you. Good evening, sir, please. Steve, did you sign in?
I did, I'm sorry. I signed in. My name is Don Quixote, and no, my name is really Henry Baldus. But I do feel a little bit like I'm tilting at windmills here. I own the property across the alley on the north side of this development. And my issue is 2 things. One is the rear setback variance. It should be 20-plus feet, but it's down to 6 feet. And my house is a residential house across, and I'm like 15 feet away from the lot line. I don't think that variance is justified, so I can't explain why. I just don't feel that it's justified. You know, there's a reason for the 20-foot setback for buildings like that in that area. All the rest of the buildings down Burlington have that setback. This one will be 6 feet from the lot line, and the alley is gravel alley. They're gonna have 2-car garage and 5 of the units. So that's 10 cars going in and out of the alley multiple times a day. If they really want to put the building there, they should, I believe, they should put cobblestone like they have over behind Cass Avenue, between Cass Avenue and Lincoln. And that'll minimize the amount of dust and commotion, unless, of course, the sanitary district decides to dig it up again and fix the sewer for the 4th time, so. That's it. That's my 2 objections.
So stay right there. Staff, would you discuss the alley issue?
Well, I will, to the best of my ability. The Public Works Department has plans to rebuild that alley, not with the cobblestone standard, but very similar to what we did behind here, where it's asphalt with 2 ribbons of concrete on each side to define the asphalt area. This development does invoke what we call public improvements. So typically, the first request is that they install the new alley. In a case where the Public Works Director has the ability to waive that requirement when they have other plans for the alley and submit a cash in lieu. There is a waiver request that will be forwarded to the board because the petitioner is asking to waive that cash in lieu. But basically, Public Works has a plan to replace the whole alley that's a few years off. So they want to wait and do it in a few years.
Respectfully ask what the timeline of that is, because a plan is just that, it's a plan, it's not a commitment. So, I mean, I've been living there 30 years, and when I first moved in there, that alley was fairly serviceable. In fact, it had a speed bump on it, so. But now it's just the Wild West there, especially during Taste of Westmont, where you got, you know, the clowns coming down Lincoln, not paying attention to sign that the road is closed, and then they use that alley and there's 5 mile per hour speed limit signs on the poles. Nobody pays attention to that. They
I
do
think it's
20
within the
miles an
next
hour.
5 years was what the Public Works Director told us,
That was what we were told.
is when the village plans to improve the alley. And I think the reason why the Public Works Director agreed, which she's authorized to do by the village ordinance, is to accept cash in lieu from this developer instead of having the developer improve the alley adjacent to the property, is that if they were to improve it in 5 years, the village would have to tear it up because they're redoing the entire alley with presumably the permeable pavers that they've used throughout town.
So if I understand correctly, the developer's requesting that they don't put the cash in lieu of?
Correct.
Well, that doesn't seem fair.
And again, that's not for this commission to consider. Because it's not a zoning request and it's not a design standard.
But then, in that case, if they don't take that cash from the developer, I've got to pay it in property taxes, right?
In most cases, the village improves alleys at taxpayer expense.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
When there's a development, the land development code says you have to improve the alley adjacent, or in some cases, the street adjacent to your property. And you're right, they are entitled to make that waiver request to the village board, and
Well, that's directly to the village board?
it is because.
And that'll be publicly posted?
It will be.
Okay, all right.
But this commission won't be voting on that item because it's
Understood.
outside of their purview.
Okay. So that's all I got. Thank you for your time. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Seeing none, we'll go to the commissioners. Commissioner Lavoie, you want to start again?
Again. Okay, I'll start. I see some really, really good things that I like, and I see some things that I'm objecting to. But the first thing is, in my my comments related to Joe, your comments, to me, when you gave the examples of density, you cited other projects, but those other projects, to me, my interpretation of them is they're apartments. They are not townhomes and they're not single-family. They are comparable properties in density that you gave cited apartment buildings.
No. They were both.
Which one?
A mixture.
Yeah, but we had some that with the higher density number of One North Cass, of the new building on the corner. Those are apartment buildings, correct?
Yes, and I believe when I went through that, I said these are kind of comparable. It's
Yeah,
more
yeah,
for
yeah.
information.
Yeah, so to me, that's something when you're looking at density, that's a total, to me, that's apples and oranges. When I look at an apartment building versus a town.
Some of the examples, I think you pointed out.
Some of them
like,
did,
So-
yes.
Or
so
condos,
the ones-
down the street.
The ones I wanted to highlight specifically
Yeah,
were the ones here on Quincy that are right next to the tracks. And those were, hold on, I need my list.
Dennis, if you could switch to the overhead, please.
The ones that are here on Quincy, which are a townhouse unit, similar to this, zoned R5, similar, are at 21.23.
This one here on the left is more dense.
Density.
And those are
Now-
townhomes.
Yeah, now, maybe more comparable in your mind, but less comparable in my mind, the Quincy Street Station Homes, or I'm sorry, the Quincy Commons, which are the 4-unit townhomes
Right.
on the south side of Quincy that have single-family residential on each side of them. Those are at 13.27. And then Cass Avenue Dream Homes, which is a townhouse project, but 5 blocks away from town, those are at 12.63. When we produced the staff report, the most common question I got was about density. So I just wanted to be prepared with some of
see.
the
Yeah, no, I
most
get it.
visible
and I
projects.
heard everything you
Yeah.
said, and that, to me, density is a big issue. But it's something that, what I do see in the development is, I really happen to like, it's a very attractive building. And I don't think it's necessarily, a lot of times when we look at our codes are very complex, and trying to fit a project that we like to have in that code is sometimes, a laundry list of variations that we go through, and I understand that. But, yeah, as far as the density, I'm trying to get over the hurdle of the density issue related to townhomes there. So anyway, that's one issue. The other issue that I have is we had another project a while ago that was across the street from the library that had conflicts with the driveways. This particular corner, the inside corner of the rear access, I really think is that's my biggest problem with the presentation and with the application as it's presented to us. We have driveways, garages that will back into each other. We have cars that will have to make multiple turns to get out and back all the way over to the alley to get there, to get out of their properties. And if you can't park, even though that the rules say that you can't park in front of your garage, well, that's gonna happen. So that conflict between Lot 4 and Lot 2, backing out into each other perpendicular is really problematic for me. Maybe you can address that, but, I really see that. I wouldn't want to live there. And if I wouldn't want to live there, then I got a real problem with that. So, and also, Lot 2 would have to actually back the car to the east. Lot 5 actually jets out into the alley, so it wouldn't be a clear shot. And it would be a difficult maneuver for a car to back out of that driveway space. Would you please make me feel more comfortable about this and address it?
Well, they don't want to address it, right?
Yeah.
Dennis, if you could switch to the computer, please. Thank you.
Further back here, Mary. So, because here there's going to be a gate, so they would just, like Unit 6 is going to just back out this way and then go straight. Same with this, there's plenty of room to back out and go straight. That's why I showed that other property that was in downtown Downers Grove of how those units are and how they would back out under.
On that particular,
even.
that's the marquee, and that project is a 24, or even larger, I think a 26-foot drive aisle, and the garages are across from each other. You are in conflict between Lot 4 and the lot Lot 2. So if Lot 2 is backing out of their driveway and Lot 4 is backing out of their driveway, you're in conflict.
Okay, so you think they're going to do it at the same time?
Well, what I'm thinking is that if I own Lot 2, and my car isn't, I've noticed how you put a small car and a large car in the garage.
Well, most people,
I get that, but that's a very difficult maneuver without having it happening at the same time.
well, I guess it depends on the driver. Like this space here, what is the space here, Merrick? Because we took into account all the driveways and the access there. I mean, as far as two people at the same time, if someone's garage is open, they would, see that. So, I mean, this is across from the train. I mean, the people I think who are going to live here are people who want to go downtown and not be going in their car. And like the one guy say, oh, they're going in and out 10 times. Most people don't do that. They go to work, they come home, they're not going back and forth. But if they would do a turn and they're just going to back out, there's room there. We took that into account with all the
So Lot
dimensions.
2 would have to back all the way to the alley to get out, correct?
Lot 2? No, I don't think so. So he's talking about Lot 2?
No, this is.
4 does, for sure.
He's talking about backing out
They'd
to,
either have to do that or back their car in the first time and pull out forward.
in here with the
I think.
cars. He wants to
It would be a
talk about the car.
multiple point turn if they didn't back all the way out.
Could be a three-point turn.
Yeah.
If you look at the driveway here is at 24.
Yes, sir. I see that you signed in. Would like to swear you in. Do you swear that everything you say will be the complete truth? So help you God.
I do.
We need his name.
And your name is?
My name is Mark Salmon. So the driveway here is over 24 feet. So when this car pull back, we have just the width of this is at 25 feet. We have extra 8 feet, and plus this is another, let's say, 7 feet. So we have just like, let's say, maybe around 35 feet to pull back and drive back to the alley.
Could you talk into the microphone, please? It doesn't get recorded if you're not on the microphone.
Okay, how can I explain? Okay.
I heard what you said, but
Okay, so with the unit number 1, is another way. We can just pull the car to the Lincoln Avenue street and go to the alley. Or we have just a little bit space on the west side to turn the car and go to the alley. And unit number 2, we can pull all the way to the west, so they can easily turn because the driveway over 25 feet. So unit number 4, they pull back straight to the west, turn to the alley, very simple. And number 5, they pull the west, south and go straight to the alley. Number 6, they pull the south and go straight to the alley. I don't think this is the problem. Also, the driveway is over limit. The limit's at 24 feet, we have at 25. So I don't see any problem.
Okay. It doesn't work for me, but I'm just saying that it would be a big hurdle for me to
Yeah,
cross.
but
and
we meet just the minimum requirements, so.
Yeah, I just don't see it. I think if the density comes into play here, that if we didn't have that extra unit there, it might be an easier play. I think the building is very attractive. I really like the front facade, but I just think it's a jam in that corner. And, this is part of planning, and this is something that I see as being a conflict, and,
Part of it is kind of the design, because if you took a unit away and you had this, then people could go access. We wanted to make this secure with the gate. I mean, it's across from the train, so you wouldn't want to have an open area for people to walk in, and plus then it would have, you know, like a wind tunnel there. So it's kind of the design to keep it all contained also.
okay, I'm not in agreement, but I'm just, I understand what your answers are. That recycle bins on the side, is that gonna be enclosed? On
They're
the
not.
alley side?
Those are going to stay in someone's garage, and they're going to take it out once a week, just like people do in any house. Leave it out there for the day, and bring it back in.
Okay. I wanted to discuss the findings of fact, too. I don't really agree with the findings of fact as presented.
I drafted those.
Their answers.
Oh, theirs, from their attorney?
Yes.
I'm sorry, because I drafted them also based
Now,
on.
would I ever object to something that you drafted?
No, I actually made a mistake in one of the findings of fact about the density variance.
Okay.
And I apologize for that, but go ahead, Commissioner, I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, that's all right.
Just want to follow my story.
Well, yeah, but anyway, because of John, I'm chuckling about it, but I really don't, when I look at criteria number 1, that the property in question cannot yield a reasonable return if permitted to use only the conditions allowed by the regulation of the district, I really don't see that your findings of fact meeting that criteria. I also don't think that it doesn't have unique circumstance here. This is like normal lot configurations. There really isn't anything that is out of the ordinary here, that I see anyway, and I don't really see that, I see that the project has conflicts with the driveway, and I conflicts with, in my mind, density. However, I do like the building. I do like the building, but I think that the conflicts, because of those conflicts, I would not be in favor. The densities are kind of like all over the place, and some of them are apartments. I kind of get it. It is setting precedents for other R5 districts around town. And I just, this is unique, but I think that the negative really outweighs the positive here, even though I really like the building. You did a really good job on the building. I just have problems because of my background geometrically to make that negotiation or that navigate the traffic behind the building. It's a problem for me. So with that, I'll just pass it along.
Thank you. Commissioner Scales?
Yes, thank you, and thank you for the presentation. I appreciate it. I have a couple of quick questions, and I guess to tag on to Commissioner Lavoie's comment, for staff, was there any commentary regarding the interior traffic flow from the garages from any of the other reviewers or building or fire or anybody?
This project went through multiple revisions, from 2 separate buildings to a different corner condition. What is presented here didn't have any concerns for staff because it met the 24-foot width. They provided a little bit of a turnaround there up by Lot 1. So neither our engineer, the planner, who was me on this project, building, raised any concerns with the geometry that was happening back there.
Okay, thank you. And then my question on trash collection. So is that happening in the alley? Everyone's going to the alley, or are they putting their trash out on Burlington or Lincoln?
In the alley, they'll just You know, have their garbage cans in the garage, they'll just walk out the gate.
Okay.
Whatever day of the week it is, put it there, at night, come home from work, come take it.
Okay, I don't believe we can hear you with,
So somebody will go and put their garbage will be in their garage, like we all do, and then they'll take it out one day a week and bring it onto the pad in the alley. They'll just walk out the gate and then put it there, and then when they come home from work, they'll just go back and bring it back inside the garage.
Okay,
So
thank you.
So this way, there's nothing floating around the alley.
Okay, appreciate that. And then the retaining wall, is that going to be higher than the elevation of the, I guess, the ground? Can you help me understand that?
You have to answer that.
West side. Yeah, this is going to be the higher, but with the railing, 36 inches railing to support, there's a, I think this was on the elevation.
Yeah.
you took on the west side?
I think so, yeah. Yes, on the west side.
You'll have to talk to your official when you're talking to them.
This is the retaining wall with a metal railing, because we have the more than 30 inches high.
So that's facing the neighbor to the west, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to be clear on that. I do like that these are for sale and not rentals. Usually we see a lot of rentals, so it's nice to see a for sale product. Have you built anything like this before?
No.
This is your first development. Do you have any data to kind of support sales and prospective?
Yes. Like this property right here. I'm also a realtor. And the building that has, this one here, this density of this building that's right here on Quincy is more dense than our unit. That is 21.2 and we're at 19.5. So as far as density, that's more dense, so we're right in line with the neighbor. One of these just sold a few months ago, and it sold for $590,000.
Is that similar? Are you able to share your price point expectations?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, with our building in mind is to keep it at max of 600. That's the most we could get. I mean, to do more, to have something, the neighborhood wouldn't support $1 million units.
Sure.
So the development of this is challenging. Our stormwater that we're developing is very intense to hold. It's a swimming pool that's going to be underneath the parking lot. So we're improving the area with that.
Okay, no, I appreciate it, and I echo Commissioner Lavoy, it's a very nice-looking project, so thank you. Good.
Thank you. Commissioner Berry?
Thank you. Again, I echo a lot of the same sentiments. I looked at this Saturday, and boy, these 3 units on Burlington are just beautiful. I mean, they really look great. I wish it was just the 3 units, though. It's way too dense for me. I don't care what the numbers say. The 3, and I could possibly see a 4th on Lincoln, but I travel Lincoln probably about a dozen times a day, and there is at least always 4 cars that are parked heading northbound, so I could see where this drive would have a constant challenge. People fly, it needs to be switched from head-in parking to parallel, really, because it's a dangerous intersection there at the stop sign. So people fly around those parked cars on a continuous basis, into that lane. And again, to even get out of that driveway, there's always a car there. Secondly, when I first opened this packet, when I got to page 3, that's where it kind of stopped for me. Again, to what Chris was saying, there is no way to maneuver these garages. I mean, if 2 people are taking their child to school at the same time, which would be very common, even if the parent did take the train, they're going to back into each other. If somebody's going to be washing their car or something in the driveway, the other garage is completely useless. You would be stopped. And then, again, to have to back out And then I think of when there's snow, and where would that snow go? And how would we maneuver that with such a tight and backing up and maneuvering around, and we have the cans there already? So it kind of died pretty fast for me. Those issues there, it's just too many. Again, I love this 3 layout along Burlington. I think that's fantastic. If it had straight-in garages off the back, something like that, I love it. Possibly a 4th unit on Lincoln, I could see, but the 6 is just way too much for me.
Right here is where all the snow would go. This is the open area for snow removal. And as far as 2 people at the same time, that would be courtesy. I mean, even in where I live and there's a home, if someone's backing out, I still wait. Nobody backs out at the same time if you see the other garage open, because they're gonna go right down the street. So I guess I don't see that as an issue.
Yeah, I wasn't looking for a rebuttal back and forth. I was just taking my time here, but that's why I'm going to be a no for this project, are those items. So, thank you.
Commissioner Peterson.
You know, when the village plows the alleys, it's gonna all go into your parking lot. It's gonna be a constant battle every time they go down the alleys. That's, you know, where Harold's right, and if you put your snow there and the village comes by, it's just gonna keep going back and forth. But anyway, I love the building. What I don't like is the very, very minuscule front, side, rear. It's almost too big for the lot. But I'm conflicted because it is 1 block off of Cass, and, you know, is that eventually the village's plan to go back that far? Unfortunately here, you know, you do have houses that have been there for a long time that people live in that, you know, have some issues too. I just think it's too much crammed on the property. And I know it's been vacant for a long time, but honestly, an open, beautiful lawn, green space is not an issue. I mean, it could be there another 20 years and it'd be fine. Like I said, I like the concept, but I don't know, it just seems too big for such a small lot. I kind of agree with Harold, you know, if you maybe cut one of the units off and, you know, you could do the parking different, and I don't know, I'm a little bit torn, but I do like how the building looks. It's a gorgeous building.
Well, that's why, I mean, someone wants to sell the property, so I know maybe everyone likes to just open green space, but that's why it's an issue. And the building that was approved in '05, there was no setbacks at all that was approved. So this would just add and kind of put Westmont on the map of being modern. So
We're talking from the audience.
I understand what you're talking about, but it's been approved by the people with the distance and, you know, I guess.
Can I speak?
Please come to the podium.
So I just want to address the fact that this stormwater retention has been a major, major, major issue. And what we're being required to do, if we can't do 6 townhomes on this, then this project is not viable. It's a fact. I'm not threatening, I'm just saying a fact.
We understand.
You know, we're storing 42,000 gallons of water underneath that parking lot to allow it to be dispensed at a reasonable rate. And so that's why the design is the way it is.
Commissioner Thomas.
I appreciate that view, and flooding is, we all know. And that, in fact, will help. I also have, like my other commissioners, have major problem with the backing out of the garages and working its way. Now, on the garbage cans, on the printout here, is that literally how many will be there?
Well, there are 5 garbage and 5 trash, at 5 recycling.
And 6 lots.
Well, and the lot number 3 has its own garbage would
Lincoln.
come out of
It
the
would be
east
on
side
Lincoln
on
Street.
Lincoln.
Okay, so two cans in each garage during the week. And your bylaws of the homeowners will state that they cannot come out until.
Exactly.
And in fact, the new vendor will be doing it, the recycling once a week in the new contract, Nat. I have a problem also with the snow removal coming down the alley. They plow, they don't pick up and put in the truck.
We would have service that would come in from the
You have to come, if you're going to come to the podium.
So the HOO would take care of it and put all the snow on the side, and if they came and plowed us in, they would be moving that. So that would be part of the HOA and the vendor that we would hire to remove the snow in the parking area.
Okay, what's going to push me over from negative to possibly positive, I'm still debating, is the water retention. That's a major point that I hadn't even thought about until you just mentioned it.
And the water retention is going to benefit the whole area that we're around, not just us. There's going to be a major impact. I know that the train tracks flood easily, and our solution of putting in this water retention will take care of that issue. So Westmont will benefit by us doing this project in other ways.
Thank you. That's all I have.
All right.
Mr. Chair, I respectfully disagree with that comment entirely.
Say that again?
That's not the case. Their stormwater detention is based on their lot. It's not gonna fix the areas surrounding that property. Their drainage of their lots, their gutters, their roof, their driveways, their impervious area, that's how that is quantified, and every development has to do that. It's not unique to this development, and it's not gonna fix surrounding flooding areas. It's a matter of what our ordinance requirements are. That's a requirement of this particular applicant or any applicant.
Yeah.
So I don't agree that it's gonna fix the downtown area because of this stormwater system.
Thank you.
So what does our staff have to say about the water retention?
Well, they're not picking up anyone else's water. You know, they're not gonna take alley water and put it in that retention. They're not gonna take street water and put it in that retention. Only their property is going into that retention. So really, they are not benefiting anybody but themselves. You know, they're not creating any problems for the neighbors,
Right.
but they're not helping any of the neighbors by taking their water.
Right.
You know, because again, it's for their property only.
In speaking with Jamie, the engineer, he said we are helping and benefiting the area, because we were talking about how come so much, and he said we are benefiting the area.
That's Jamie Patterson,
Yes.
village engineer.
Well, again, I would have to question that, because if you're not piping any other water into there,
But it's the way it's draining toward.
again, we're not looking for a back and forth. It's usually the petitioner has their time and then we talk. So this is an unusual meeting to me that people are interrupting and so, you know, however you guys want to proceed, I guess.
My name is Phil Wolf. I'm the engineer for the developer. You're absolutely right, they're not taking water in from anybody else's. There was a stormwater report that came along with the submittals here. In the existing condition, the runoff from this site is over 1 cubic foot per second. The ordinance requires 1.1 CFS per acre. This is 13,000 square feet, so the release rate coming off of this site is less than 10% of what it is in the existing condition. Would you consider that helping the downstream?
Sure, yeah, it's helping because it has less, yes, so, yes, it is helping, it is. But it will not help with the Burlington Flooding, okay? It will not help with the railroad track flooding, just to be clear on that, okay?
It's not going to solve all the
Yeah, no,
problems.
it is-
But when you reduce the release rate coming off the site, it does make improvements to downstream flooding conditions.
Absolutely.
You can't improve all of them unless you start storing hundreds of times what they're storing here on this property.
Sure. Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you. Mr. Zakari, it's your turn.
Yeah, I agree with the commissioners that it's a beautiful looking building. You know, anecdotally speaking, you know, I had some of my neighbors at my old building that I lived in the city because I lived in a very similar parking scenario prior to moving to Westmont. And the measurements are pretty similar. You know, we were just at the minimums. And, you know, having lived it myself, was it challenging at times? Yes. Is it impossible? Definitely not. You know, we handled snow removal with an alley where the city would come plow it right back into our driveway. When they went through, you got to go clear it again. You know, it's not the greatest experience, but, you know, you can compare it to, you know, a plow going down, you know, my street, South Wilmette, and putting it right back onto my pad as well. So, for me, I don't really see it as an issue. I like the project, so.
Thank you. I agree that the city pushes snow in the bottom of my driveway every time it snows. Unfortunately, I'm married, and I have a wife who goes down there and cleans that out. I'm
You're on record.
a lucky guy.
Now we are recording.
Well, I'm speaking the truth. I mean it. But, so I don't see that as a stopper. I see that, I mean, it is, to me, it would be very awkward backing out of these garages every day, but that's.
The most effective thing.
It's not impossible, and I would not see that as a stopper.
What has happened in my experience is that folks learn that it's much easier to back into their spot and pull out forward. So that's what I did for 6 years. That's what a lot of folks did. And we backed in off an alley. Again, challenging, annoying, sure. Impossible, definitely not. But it made the experience of leaving way better. So I think people will just figure that out.
And as we've seen with other developments, you may have somebody with no car. You know, as we see the trend today with millennials, you may have a situation, you know.
Okay, anybody else? More comments? That being the case, Chair would entertain a motion to approve under public hearing PZC 04020223. First, a zoning ordinance variance request to allow a driveway to encroach into the required 3-foot side yard setback for a driveway.
Motion Scales.
Second, Barry.
Motion, and second. Discussion? Seeing none. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Berry?
No.
Commissioner Scales?
Yes.
I'm sorry? I didn't hear
Yes.
Scales.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Commissioner Lavoy?
No.
Commissioner Zakari?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson votes no, and Chairperson Carmichael?
Yes. Number 2, zoning ordinance variance request to the required lot areas per building and per dwelling in the R5 General Residence District.
Motion Scales.
Second, Barry.
Motion and second. Discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Commissioner Scales?
Yes.
Commissioner Lavoy?
No.
Commissioner Zakari?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson votes no. Commissioner Berry?
No.
Chairperson Carmichael?
Yes. 3, zoning ordinance variance request to the required front yard setback in the R5 General Residence District. Do I have a motion to
Scales.
approve?
Sorry. Motion Scales.
Scales.
Second, Barry.
Second, Barry. Discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Commissioner Lavoy?
No.
Commissioner Zakari?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson votes no. Commissioner Berry?
No.
Commissioner Scales?
Yes.
Chairperson Carmichael.
Yes. 4, a zoning ordinance variance request to the required side yard adjoining a street setback in the R5 General Residence District. Motion?
Motion Scales.
Second, Barry.
I have a motion to approve and a second. Discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Commissioner Zakari?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson votes no. Commissioner Berry?
No.
Commissioner Scales?
Yes.
Commissioner Lavoy?
No.
Chairperson Carmichael?
Yes. 5, a zoning ordinance variance request to the required rear yard setback in the R5 General Residence District. I have a motion to approve.
Motion Scales.
Second, Barry.
Motion and second. Discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson votes no. Commissioner Berry?
No.
Commissioner Scales?
Yes.
Commissioner Lavoy?
No.
Commissioner Zakari?
Yes.
Chairperson Carmichael?
Yes. 6, site and landscape plan approval. Motion to approve.
Motion Scales.
Second, Barry.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Commissioner Peterson votes no. Commissioner Berry?
No.
Commissioner Scales?
Yes.
Commissioner Lavoy?
No.
Commissioner Zakari?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Chairperson Carmichael?
Yes. And finally, a preliminary plat of subdivision to re-subdivide 2 lots into 7 lots. Motion to approve.
Motion Scales.
Second, Barry.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion on the item? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Berry?
No.
Commissioner Scales?
Yes.
Commissioner Lavoy?
No.
Commissioner Zakari?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson votes no, and Chairperson Carmichael?
Yes. Well, there you have it, folks. Got a majority, 4 out of 7 voted yes on each of the items. So this will go forward to the village board with our recommendation of approval. Staff will notify you when you're scheduled. And good luck. Thank you for your presentation. Next item is open forum. The public comment rules and procedures are set forth in Chapter 2, Section 266 of the Westmont Code of Ordinances. Public comment is allowed for matters of public concern that are not on the meeting agenda. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Is there anyone who would like to address the board on any item not on the agenda? Staff is not allowed. That was a joke.
Commissioner, one suggestion that I might make that would maybe slimline these meetings by
Yes.
45 minutes to an hour is maybe if the commissioners went before staff, and then staff would then know the people that didn't read the packets or what wasn't left in there, because to go over the packet that we all should have already had, seems like it adds a lot to these meetings.
If I may interject, I
Mm-hmm.
think that's a great comment with one exception, and that is when staff reads or summarizes its staff report, it's as much for the benefit of the public who probably hasn't read the full staff report.
And that was
seen
my
the plans.
con to it, is what I was thinking, was the other side of it.
Yes.
But
So-
my point being is we may cover those questions, and then whatever was left, the staff could then pick up on. That would be my point of it.
I see what you're
You know,
There
and
may
Joe
be-
could say, hey, you guys didn't ask about this or didn't do this.
There may be other ways to streamline it, just with meeting organization, when people randomly talk out of order.
I agree with that. I was gonna-
Commissioners trying to make a comment, I heard you make that comment, and I kind of agreed with you that if Commissioner Thomas is in the middle of making his comments, he should be allowed to do so uninterrupted, and not have someone come up repeatedly to, oppose what you're saying. Unless you
Yeah.
ask a question. and want them to come up.
Right.
You know,
It-
to the floor.
Right,
And
like Chris did.
I
Chris
know
asked it,
that
you know.
when the petitioner is finished and the public comment is finished, the public hearing is closed. And when someone wants to come up and debate, as you say, or argue or make another point, the chair could easily say, I'm sorry, public hearing is closed, now it's only commissioners. But it seems to me that in fairness, yeah, it takes more time, but.
It's just hard in a
fairness to the-
situation like that where
In
she's,
fairness to the public and to the petitioner and
but
everything.
she's not even at the mic.
I'm inclined
You know, it's,
to allow them to.
but she's not even at the mic. So then it's not even getting recorded. To me, that's a time to.
Yeah, good point.
Is there a formal period, because I agree with that statement, but is there a formal period once we've finished our questions, or to the point I think Lavoy made, which is you call them up for a question, but is there a rebuttal period at the end that's formal or not?
No, unless the chairman wants to say, do
Customary,
you have
right.
any closing comments to make? But
Okay.
usually, once they do their presentation, public talks, they answer any additional questions the commissioner has, at least in this village, that's it. And it goes to a vote, and at that point, all comments done.
Because I'm with Barry, I'm all for efficiency, for sure.
Okay, next item is miscellaneous. Nothing other than our next meeting, is second Wednesday in April, April 10th.
I have one
Same
thing to
time and
add.
place.
So we sent out the survey to everybody's emails about changing the meeting time to 6 PM.
Yeah.
We got a positive responses to that, so we're going to move forward with pursuing that time change. That does not mean the next meeting will be at 6 PM. We will notify you once we go through the proper process of notifying the public and our requirements. So don't expect that time change to happen until we notify you directly.
Chris, did you have a comment?
Yes, I had one comment too to help facilitate things. I sent an email to Jamie today requesting the packages be sent electronically because I know I'm mobile all the time. I don't want to carry around all of the hard copies. I really want it on my computer so I can do things efficiently.
I think we do to your village email.
Yeah, I got it.
Directly.
That's how I get them.
Yeah.
We get the package.
So if you do have issues with the village email, reach out to.
That issue.
I know.
And it's because my computer doesn't allow me.
Yeah,
My IT pin won't allow me to.
Yeah.
Well, it looked like I saw something up here, and it looked like stuff was in Google Docs. Is
Yeah,
there,
so we are starting to make a change where we're gonna have documents available to the public through the Agenda Center.
Can we set up a Google Docs folder that we all have?
So that'll
access to?
be, that's what we're attempting to do.
If I go in.
They were in a G drive, these past ones.
Yes.
That I got them, yeah, they're
So
in a G drive.
very similar to what we did with when the Hilton came through with their project. We had the documents with a hyperlink on the agenda through the website.
That's really helpful to me.
We're trying to move forward with having that with most cases as we get their documents for the public to view. Then the public is more informed as well.
If I can interject for a second. So the difficulty with the village email, and I learned this just yesterday, because I know that several of the commissioners have issues getting in, is that if you don't get in once a week, then it wants you to reset your password. And then if you're not in once every 15 days, then it gives you an additional 15 days to get in there. And if you're not in there within 30 days, then it basically says you got to call somebody and deal with somebody.
So that's why my password won't work.
Yes.
Do you guys have it set up on your phone?
Yeah.
The village email?
So there's no remedy that
But
IT
it can
can
be,
make.
it can be FOIA though, so, just so you know, if you have it on there, you know.
There's no remedy that
It
IT
could
can
be-
make.
it could be-
Hopefully.
What do they call, subpoenaed, right? I mean, or,
Well, with FOIA, if it's.
I didn't mean
if
FOIA,
it's
I'm
through
sorry.
the village server and village email.
Looking for the
IT
server.
Can collect all of those emails. So anything you send through your village email account, IT has access to and can pull those emails in response to a FOIA. If you're communicating on your personal device about public business, that's also subject to FOIA. Just because you use a personal phone to discuss public business doesn't mean you're somehow exempt from the FOIA requirements. So it's recommended that you keep your correspondence related to public business on, village email account.
But there is a Google Drive that we can access.
So it's not a Google Drive that anybody can access. We will have specific hyperlinks on the agenda. So you get the paper agenda, right? We have that same agenda
That's
posted
what I
on
like
the
to have,
website.
is hyperlink that I can
Yeah,
go.
and that hyperlink connects to a Google Drive folder.
I understand. I just mean, to his point about getting the packages digitally, do they just exist in a Google Drive that we can access each month?
Not until we upload the items.
Okay.
So, once basically,
I would advocate for that.
We try to get the public documents, so the documents the petitioners give to us, uploaded. Staff report takes more time to get uploaded. And right when we get the staff report uploaded, that's when you get the notification in email as well, for the digital copies, the PDFs.
Yeah, Scott, also, I don't know how you feel about this, maybe John can help, is I would like to get the stuff sooner. Rather than just a handful of days before the meeting. That's always a problem. It's always been that way, but when we're dealing with very complex issues and bigger projects, we need more time. And even if it's not the formal, even if we're being kept informed, posting something that's not official, but I don't know if we can do that or not, but.
So what I'll say is.
Have just a handful of days to look at multiple projects of this complexity is difficult.
So my understanding at least is, and John, feel free to correct me, is once we post the agenda, we have documents available to the public that the petitioner provided to us. So if somebody came to the window requesting to see what was posted on the agenda, they have access to come in and look at those documents. They can't take anything, they can't take pictures, anything like that. But they can view them and then leave at their leisure.
But to answer your question, understand, it makes absolute sense. It'd be great to have stuff a month ahead of time. I'll try to defend staff a little bit. I work with them regularly, and there's just, we've got one planner and one community development director who's running it, basically between them, every single zoning matter that comes through the village.
Right.
And their time, and, they're working long hours, and it's hard for them just to meet a deadline to get a staff report drafted.
Yeah.
And they're trying to be developer friendly when someone wants to get on an agenda, but they might not be able to prepare a staff report until literally the week before, and that's when you get the materials. So I don't know how to solve that problem.
Yeah, what I'll say is, I may have mentioned it before, but the petitioner items, once the agenda's posted, we're gonna try to upload those to the website. So those at least are viewable. The staff report takes more time, because we also have to review those
Yeah, you get that
documents.
early, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, so that's what we're trying to move towards, I should say. We have a computer system that sometimes is hard to work with, so.
Okay, there's another issue that I think that we should address, and that is that some of the commissioners were approached by a resident on a particular petition tonight. And you really, I shut it down. I won't even discuss it. You need to look at this thing independently without any influencing factors. And that's really important, that you're not influenced or being biased by somebody else. John, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's public hearing and public testimony that happens, and reaching out to commissioners really shouldn't happen.
You're absolutely right, and I'm planning to address that with you guys, not necessarily at this meeting, but in the future. But now that you've brought it up, this is the public hearing. This is the time for you to hear testimony for or against, and to review documents, and all testimony has to be provided under oath, and that's by state statute. So when a resident comes in, or someone from the outside, or a developer, and wants to talk to any one of you about a project outside of the public hearing process with comments that aren't sworn under oath, that's improper. And it's never been a problem in this village. It's always been, I think, understood by most residents and applicants that they can't talk to planning and zoning commissioners in advance of a public hearing, or the judge and the jury in a way. And if someone does approach you, You know, they may have come from a good place, good heart, just wanting to inform you, and you have to politely shut them down and say, I can only listen to your comments during the public hearing process. Thanks for trying to reach out to me, but you're welcome to attend and speak.
Yeah.
And so you know that has happened to me several times.
Yeah, no, it happened to me before this first,
Yeah.
before this first meeting. I was like, oh, wow, is this normal?
Just
Yeah,
shut it
and
down.
and me too, and I just say, the meeting is second Wednesday, come to the meeting.
Well, there's a letter in the mail for me.
Yeah, might
Looks like
be
the
too,
chairman
but
didn't even open
just so our responses are all the
Yes,
same. you know,
I
that-
received a letter today.
Yeah, that's what
in the
I-
mail, And I was uncomfortable with it, so I didn't open it. I just
Yeah.
turned it over to the village attorney. Now I'm kind of
And
curious
and
what was in
normally,
it.
if someone can't attend the meeting, but they want to send
can write a letter.
comments, yeah, they reach out to Community Development Department, and they say, can I submit an email that you can distribute to the commission? And Joe or Scott will do so at the meeting.
Yeah.
It's not under oath, and I usually say, it's up to you to determine what weight to give an email comment that's not here in person under oath. But we don't say, no, we're not going to distribute that.
But that's the proper channel for
That's the
them
proper
to,
channel.
Okay.
to do
Very
that.
good. Thanks for bringing that up, Chris. At this point, the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Barry? Oh, sorry.
Barry and who? You?
Thomas, seconded by Barry. Go ahead, whatever you heard. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?